welcome back to my channel. My name is Morgan Dunn and this is my channel, That Girl Morgs. And I just want to say welcome if this is your first time jumping onto my channel. And if you haven't already, you can check out my welcome to my channel intro trailer, if you will, because then that kind of gives you a bit of an overview of what it's all about. But with that being said, today's video, it is about adrenal fatigue. And it is about my journey with adrenal fatigue. And if you have known me for any length of time, and if you've been following my blog or even my Instagram, you would know that I have spoken about adrenal fatigue a lot. And the reason for that is that it has pretty much entered into every section, every area of my life. It has completely, in some cases, in some periods, overtaken it. And that's been overwhelming, and it's a big deal. And if you've ever experienced it, or you know of anyone else who's ever experienced it, it's not one of those things that you can just take some supplements and get a good night's rest and you're good, depending on how bad it is for you and how depleted you are. It's a process, and it can take a long time to get over it. I know people who have gone and undergone lifestyle changes in a big way to help and heal, and years later they're still healing. They're still on the up. They haven't gone backwards, but they're still healing. And it's a bit of a beast, I'm not gonna lie. And it has, as I said, it's definitely overtaken parts of my life sometimes, and it hasn't made me feel good. And so this is just to document basically what it is in a nutshell, without getting too technical. When it started for me, how it came about, I guess like what the peak of it was and how that all looked, and then basically what I've done since to try and help and heal. I'm definitely not 100% by any means, but some other changes that I've made recently have certainly helped in a big way, probably the biggest way that it has in like the 18 months, give or take, that I've been working to try and heal and get better. So adrenal fatigue, what is it other than feeling like complete shithouse? Adrenal fatigue is basically when your adrenals are just completely depleted, and your body just isn't doing what it's supposed to do. It's overproducing, it's underproducing, and it's not sending the right signals to where things need to go in order to do the things that your body needs it to do. And basically, your stress hormone, cortisol, it's thrown for a loop. Because it's just been so taxed for so long. Your adrenals are completely burnt out, and it causes a host of problems, a number of problems. Where are your adrenals? It is a very tiny little gland that sits on top of your kidneys in your lower back. And for a long time, I thought adrenal fatigue was pretty much like my adrenals were the complete center of all of my issues, and for the most part, yes, that is true. But I've recently read a book, actually, by the author. Let me find it, because it's an amazing book and I can't recommend it enough. It's called The Adrenal Fatigue Solution by Fawn Hansen and Dr. Eric Wood. And it is fantastic. It's probably the most comprehensive book or piece of information that I have read out there about adrenal fatigue. And it goes so in depth and explains it so well that I would 100% recommend it. I will link to it in the notes below. But if you are wondering about adrenal fatigue, or you just want to know more about it, read this book. It pretty much, I couldn't explain it any better. Like, I don't think I could do it justice. So I will explain it in a nutshell. Get this book. It's only $19. It's worth every penny, and it goes into detail. But yeah, so I thought it was just these little adrenal glands, but it's not. There's a lot more to it than that. It's your brain as well. It's a whole bunch of other hormones basically just not doing what they're supposed to do because your body or yourself, you have been under stress for such a long, prolonged period of time, chronic stress, that your body has just been like, I'm out. I give up. I can't do this anymore. And it just gives out, and then you go into burnout. So some people might know adrenal fatigue as being adrenal insufficiency or as burnout. Medical doctors don't diagnose adrenal fatigue accurately most of the time. And the reason for that is that because there's so much at play with adrenal fatigue, and it has to do with so many different things of the reason why you got there and the way to get out of it, is that they just don't know enough about it yet, unfortunately. And it's something that I think we're all still learning and still trying to figure out. This is something that has really only become about in the 21st century, when this whole idea of, oh, you gotta hustle, you gotta like, sleep when you're dead, has come into play. And it's too much, and it's sent people off into this direction where they're not sleeping, they're unhappy, they gain weight, like they're reaching for the sugary foods all the time and the caffeine because they need the high to perk them up when they get their 3 p.m. slump. And it's basically burnt us out. So yeah, in a nutshell, adrenal fatigue is basically when your hormones, your adrenal, your adrenaline, cortisol, it's just done. They're burnt out. They can't do what they're supposed to do anymore. So with that being said, what does adrenal fatigue look like? A lot of different things. So for me personally, I couldn't sleep. And it wasn't just a case of insomnia. It varied. It was just I couldn't fall asleep for hours. I was wired but tired. Even lying in bed, my whole body would be amped. Like that, that feeling where you're about to get out of bed, or like you're about to go like sprint and your body just like tenses up. That's how I felt trying to go to sleep. And I didn't even realize it for months until eventually it was like, all of a sudden I noticed it, and I had to tell my body, I had to consciously tell my body, calm down. You're not about to go on the 100-meter sprint. You're not in any danger. There's nothing wrong. You're in a dark room. You're fine. Relax. Calm down. You're not about to get out of bed for any reason. You're good. So yeah, I couldn't fall asleep for the longest time. 1 a.m. I'd still be awake. My partner would be sound asleep, which was even more frustrating because I'm like, oh my God, all I want to do is sleep, but I couldn't. And then I would have to wake up for work, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and I would have been on very little sleep, so it was tough for me to even wake up. My mood changed for sure. I don't know how much of this people necessarily notice because I always do try to be very mindful. I've never been a moody person, so I'd say it's probably less moodiness and more I just noticed in my periods of being by myself, or if it was just myself and my partner, or myself and my friends, very close friends, where I let that guard down and I felt like shit. I felt unhappy is probably the best way to put it. Unhappiness. I'm normally a very happy-go-lucky kind of person, very positive, and I think a lot of people who know me would agree with that. But I would just get these really down moments, and I would be upset and just feeling overwhelmed and defeated. Sugar cravings as well. That was another really big one for me, and multiple coffees a day. I'm not like a desserts person. I'm not really a sweets person. I don't prior to being diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, if I did any baking or any kind of cooking that required sweetness added to it, it would be, I would add, maple syrup or honey or applesauce or banana. I would tend to, or dates, like I would go for the natural sugars in order to sweeten things, never refined sugars. Like I don't have sugar in my coffee. I don't have sweetness in my coffee. Like I don't, probably for like a decade or maybe not quite a decade, maybe like 7 or 8 years or so, I haven't had like the flavorings in my coffee. I personally don't like the taste. I find it way too sweet for me. I don't care for it. And I know it's not good for you, so I've never gone for it. I'm not even the type of person who like needs to buy a bag of candy. I don't care for it. But as my adrenal fatigue started to get worse and like hit its peak, I suppose, I was going for sugary foods more often just to like perk me up, but not even just perk me up in an energetic sense, but perk me up to make me feel good, because I was having these like down periods. So, and also craving salty foods as well. So I would be going for packets of chips, which like I am not a junk food person at all. I have been pretty healthy most of my life. I've been a marathoner. I go to the gym. I used to play competitive soccer. So I never went for the junk food because I didn't like, that's not what fuels me best for the exercises that I do. But when I got adrenal fatigue, that totally went out the window and I just didn't even care. It was just, I need the salt or I need the sugar, and my body craved it. In turn, my energy levels just took a nosedive. So as I mentioned before, as a marathoner, I have run marathons. I've done half marathons. I'm a big runner, would run 5-6 times a week. But as my adrenal fatigue just got worse, I couldn't get out the door. And it wasn't even a case of like, I don't have the energy to get out the door. I don't even know if I can explain this right. It was a case of like, I just don't even have the motivation. Like before, it'd be just like, yeah, I'd get up on a weekend, and it was a given, like, yeah, I'm just gonna go for a run. Like, be back in an hour, whatever, or I'd come home from work, it was a given, I'd come home, I'd put my running stuff on, I was out the door. Like, it was just it wasn't even a thought of like, oh, I wonder if I'll go for a run today. It was just like, I would do it. That's just what I would do. But when my adrenal fatigue got really bad, I just didn't have the motivation. It was just like, oh my God, I can't be bothered. I don't have the energy. I can't be bothered. I just want to be on the couch. So that was really weird for me as well. In turn, I think it was a combination of like lack of energy. So I wasn't exercising as much. I was also going for the really shitty foods because that's what my body was just craving. And it's also pretty common just in general as well for people who have adrenal fatigue. But I put on 10 kilograms or 20 pounds for my American friends. 20 pounds is how much I've put on since the worst of my adrenal fatigue to now. And that was really tough because, as I said, my moods were already down. So then when I realized, like, shit, I've now put on 20 pounds or 10 kilos, I'm guesstimating, like, roughly, that's the equation, how it works out. It just made me even more down. So that didn't help. What else? Oh, I used to get, I guess I don't really get them as much anymore, and I'll explain that later why, but I would get what they also call afternoon headaches, but they would be a bit more than just headaches. Like, they were basically borderline migraines. And prior to adrenal fatigue, I would never get migraines, like, at all. I think prior to getting adrenal fatigue, maybe had one migraine my entire life. And now I was getting them probably once or twice a month, these awful afternoon headaches where it was just like my head felt like it was about to explode. I kind of felt like I was here but not really here. Couldn't see very well. My eyes were blurry. energy is obviously completely shot. All I wanted to do was just lay in bed and sleep and be in the darkness. And like even my jaw, like I would just be achy. It was just the worst. But that would always happen in the afternoon to late evening. I remember this one time where I had come home from work and I had felt that this headache was coming on again. And my boyfriend picked me up and we went back to my place because we were living in 2 different places at the time. And it was basically like I walked through the door, I had a shower, he was in the kitchen preparing dinner, I had a shower, came out, pajamas on, I was in bed at like, I think 6:30. I slept right through until I think about 10 or 11 o'clock the next day. This was a normal for me when the adrenal fatigue had gotten at its worst. And on weekends, I was sleeping like 13 hours without a problem. I wouldn't matter what time, like if I did fall asleep at a reasonable time, 13 hours. It was crazy. Also, pretty much like whenever I could, and basically every single weekend, I was napping for anywhere between 1 to 3 hours at a time on both days sometimes, which again, like I've never really been a big napper. Like I might throw in a nap here or there throughout the whole year, but it wasn't an every single weekend occurrence. But my body was craving sleep. I needed it so badly. And so come like 2 or 3 o'clock, which is usually when I would get my slump in the afternoon as well, that was when I would just zonk out and needed my nap. I would also have dizzy spells as well occasionally, and not even just from like getting up and like, you know, from the floor or from whatever and then like doing something else, or like, you know, if you bent over and got up too quickly, like you might get a little dizzy. It would just be at complete random. Would be just a dizzy spell. I'm like, shit. I know I live in BC and I know there's a fault line, but I am pretty sure that there's not an earthquake right now. But that's kind of how it felt. And it was pretty rotten. That didn't feel good either, because sometimes that would even give me a little bit of a headache just because of how that felt. So I'm trying to think if there's any other symptoms I personally experienced, but that's probably, in a nutshell. As I said, I would get the 3 p.m. slump as well. My digestion was just shot, so I wasn't even absorbing food very well either. Wait, I lied. There are a few more symptoms. My skin broke out. So I've also never experienced this in my entire life. It was almost like I was hitting puberty finally. My skin, although it wasn't a crazy breakout, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things. For me, it was too much because I have never had skin problems. Like, I pretty much don't even really get pimples. But all of a sudden, my skin would just break out in these little blemishes on my cheeks initially, and then at the top of my eyebrow. And to me, it was like, whoa, what the hell is going on here? Like, this is crazy. This is not what my body does. And yet, here we are. The other thing that would happen, so going back to the running, is I would get out there and I would start to run on days that I felt like I could, or I just pushed myself out the door. And I would go out there and all of a sudden I would be out there for not even a kilometer and I would have to stop. I was cooked. I was like, I just don't even have the energy. Like, my legs just feel like cement. I can't move. Like, I'm just so exhausted. Like, I already feel like I run a marathon. This is ridiculous. I remember when I ran the Scotiabank half marathon last year. And I had gotten 5Ks in. And I walked. I've never walked in a half marathon in my entire life. So that was a very humbling moment for me. That's not to say walking in a half is bad. Just saying, for me personally, that's not something I had ever done. But I couldn't help it. I was so exhausted. And then to make matters worse, my heart was beating out of my chest. I was basically starting to have an anxiety attack, which with things which was something that became more frequent, started just before, but then became more frequent after the half marathon, if I ever went out running, was these like little mini anxiety attacks, and basically just that like fight or flight response, and it was just going nuts. And it sucked because I loved running. I do love running, but I couldn't run, or couldn't run happily at least, and I didn't really know what to do with that or how to handle that. So whatever did I get diagnosed? I got diagnosed with it, when did I get diagnosed with it? Probably about a year ago, actually, now. It was suggested to me probably about just under 2 years ago, that if I didn't watch myself, I might send myself into burnout. Did I listen? No. So, but yeah, it was about a year ago. It was official. It was like, yeah, you've been diagnosed with adrenal fatigue. I was diagnosed by multiple people, actually, naturopath, acupuncturist, and my dad, who's a chiropractor, naturopath and acupuncturist. All of those people, they all diagnosed me with adrenal fatigue. And it was just like, when I heard about it, I was like, well, what the fuck is adrenal fatigue? Like, what is this thing? Like, I just want to get better. I don't care. Like, you just tell me what I need to do. And then the more I started digging and more information that was told to me about it, it was like, oh, shit. This is not just something that I can just take a few supplements on, get some acupuncture, get a couple of good nights sleep, and I'm like good to go. This is not your common cold. This is not your winter flu. This could take some time. The wake-up call, I think, of like, this is serious, as if my other symptoms weren't already serious enough for me, was basically when I was told that if I didn't do something to make a lifestyle change, I guess, if you will, adrenal fatigue, if it gets bad enough, can actually turn into an autoimmune disease, which, yeah, that's a little harder to bounce back from, unfortunately. So it was at that moment I was like, right, I have some work to do, as it would seem, and got right to it. But backtracking, what got me to adrenal fatigue? So everybody is a little bit different. Bottom line is that there's been some kind of chronic stress, whether it is environmental, internal, so your diet, whatever you're eating, lifestyle, trauma, physical stress, like whatever it is. It could be a combination. It's basically, it's just a prolonged stress. It could be prolonged for years or months. Everyone gets stressed, yes, but it's when your body has to keep producing, or it gets like the stress is constantly produced and there's not enough time, there's not enough stages or moments where you're calming it down and you're basically like putting the energy back into your body again, then you deplete yourself. Kind of got to look at it like a well, I guess. It's probably, I guess, the best analogy. So if you've got a full well, but you take out water and the rain doesn't come, or you don't put the hose in the well to fill it back up, or do whatever it is you need to do to fill that well back up, the more water you take out, eventually it's going to be empty and you're not going to be able to drink or shower or whatever it is you're using the well water for. So you're kind of shit out of luck. So then you have to spend more time and more effort to fill the well back up again so that you can actually get back to somewhat normal. I don't know if people with adrenal fatigue are ever 100% again. I think that you were always kind of susceptible to having that depleted energy, maybe more easily, more quickly than others. But never say never. It's probably likely possible to get back to 100%, and so long as you maintain and you do the things that you're meant to do to make sure that your well is full again, you should be good.